Hello, and welcome to a little snippet / tidbit powerful podcast. And Stu is back, things that I feel like every single one of you listening to this conversation can relate to. And a huge one is it's hard to trust yourself on any plan that you're on if you don't give yourself a reason to trust yourself. It's hard to do that when you put so many expectations on yourself. Something that Stu is amazing at is talking about what gives you pleasure. Many of us don't take the time to slow down because it doesn't seem like it's a productive thing, does it, Stu? It doesn't at all. Tell me a little bit more about why it is so important for us to actually give some time to ourselves to pause. I know many women suffer with emotional eating because of this. They suffer with not getting their goals because they won't slow down, because they feel that slowing down takes them away from their goals. How does this actually align with the goals that we set ourselves from the get-go?
I think one of the things we need to consider before we even go any further is what is the resistance to slowing down? Like, what's stopping you from taking that little step back, from easing off a little bit, from trying to, rather than go 0 to 100, which many of us do, especially this time of year, there's this under rhythm of pressure at the moment to be go, to have our goals laid down on paper and absolutely attacking them at all times. And just to be able to step back and go, oh, right, what is the resistance to slowing down? What do I think is going to happen if I do? And for so many of us, it's like, well, I won't achieve my goals, but we're already struggling. So by being able to go, oh, maybe I do just need a little bit more rest. Maybe I do just need to give myself 5 minutes. And a really easy example, especially in the modern world, how often are we bored? Well, we're not, because we've got our phones in our pockets. So if you sit anywhere and just watch people around you, there's very few people that will just sit. Everyone's on their phones, or they're talking, or they're doing the, like, just try it. Just try and sit for 10 minutes and be bored. No phone, no meditating, no breath work, no journaling, no nothing. Just sit for 10 minutes and see what comes up for you. And I can guarantee there'll be a little bit of discomfort. Because in your head, you'll be going, I could be using this time so much more effectively. I could be doing X, Y, Z. I could be ticking off more on my to-do list. And we fall into this trap of thinking that that's going to end, that there's going to be a point where we complete everything, where we tick all the things off the to-do list, where we're able to go, right, now I've got it all done, I can rest. We create this kind of false idea of what that looks like. Whereas the reality is the to-do list never ends. There's always going to be something else to do. There's always going to be another goal to achieve. There's always something after, which is why the emphasis on the process is so powerful. But when we consider something, because you mentioned pleasure in there, and I've got a podcast with a wonderful human called Katie. She's a PhD. She's got a PhD. She's a doctor. She loves neuroscience and like all the somatic work. And we have started on this journey of exploring pleasure in all contexts, from day-to-day pleasures, mundane pleasures, right through to sexual pleasures and everything in between. And we've continually discovered this theme that pleasure can be a gateway to so much else. So if all we're ever doing is living in this mode of go, we're not stopping to enjoy where we are. We're not finding the joy in the mundane on that morning walk. Katie shared a beautiful example of she went for a walk in the park and the crunch of the icy grass underneath her and the cool wind on her face, and being able to sit and appreciate a sunrise. When you consider what the goal is, whether that's a body composition goal, whether that's a financial goal, whether it's to do with success, how do you want to feel? Probably calm, content, peaceful, happy, joyous. You can feel all those things now if you make space for it.
Yeah, and I think something that you said there is, what does done actually look like? And I think most of us don't actually know. We're so busy chasing what we don't want and what's uncomfortable. And it's like, no, I need to do this. I need to do this because we're hoping it's going to take us to this happy place where inevitably our quote unquote suffering is going to end. But you're going to continue suffering to a bigger degree when you realize that all of this work that you just put in has accumulated to nothing. And then we take it out emotionally on other things, and then we blame us as the issue. We have a problem. Our body is broken. No, your systems are just so backed up because you haven't given them a chance to do, like, you haven't done maintenance work on them. It is hard for something to function at the quality we want it to function if we've been running it dry into steam. And there's something that I know that you preach as well in experimenting. So many of us are scared to experiment because what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I blow it? It's almost like we won't trust ourselves to even let go to try something in fear of us regressing, as though we don't have total control over our actions to then help us out of that rut. But if you relate this to dieting, a lot of people do that same thing where, okay, they might trust themselves for a bit, then they freak out because it's emotional discomfort in terms of it's a sensation they've never felt before. Like they're not starving all the time, they're eating food, or they might feel, oh my God, what if I just gained weight or I'm bigger now? And then they never actually give themselves a true chance to succeed. And I think this is where that slowing down that you mentioned is really important, because you're not aligning. We wanted this to be about values, and none of that is actually related to your values. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel so disconnected from where you want to be, and you will feel like everything you're doing is moving you forward in some way, because it's some lesson that is to be learned. And everything's scary before we actually start on the process as well. Although I feel like the most important part of what you said is, what is the resistance? Because that can be related to so many different things. Like, what is stopping us? It's never like, we're in 2025 now. From what I know, we're in the greatest information age there is. There's even AI now. We have everything that can give us the information we need. Is it the right information for where we are right now? That's questionable. Most likely it isn't, because of confirmation bias, which is where I would say you need a coach. Like, you honestly need to get someone there to show you your blind spots, because you're always going to seek out information that suits what you perceive to be true, because you don't know anything else outside of your box. And if you haven't read any books on mental models, I highly recommend it. Shane Parrish has a whole series on them. He also has Clear Thinking. Highly recommend that. I read a different one that has 30 mental models by Peter Hollins. Highly recommend that too. But you'll see that even the greats of the great, I think it was Einstein. Was it Einstein? I don't know. No, it was Charles Darwin. He did everything he could to prove himself wrong, because he wanted to make sure he could see the flaws in every single thing that he does, so that he understands where other people could be coming from in order to make his argument so much more solid. But he was also open to the fact that it might not actually be the fact. So he saw other opinions to see what he was missing out on. Where could there be missing evidence from this? And if you're someone who gets triggered from eating something and then feeling fat, or doing something and feeling fat, it's like, what is the evidence for this? And how could I see it a different way? And then same for rest. But there's always going to be a resistance, and it's hard to stop yourself from doing X bad habit if you don't tie it to what you enjoy doing instead, what you could be doing instead, what the benefits of stopping that thing could be. What do you have to say about that?
I think there's a part there that I really want to touch on, and that's that idea of we'll always pick a familiar hell. Like, we'll always pick something that is familiar and comfortable, even if it's not serving us. And it's really, I'm going to say this right out, like, I still struggle with these things. I still struggle with behavior change, because it's really fucking hard to do. It's not an easy process. It's not something that, and again, right, we mentioned information. Like, yeah, there's loads of information, but it's the implementation that most people struggle with. It's how we actually take action. There's this kind of like a twofold path of one of insights and getting insights, and another of action. We need to do things with that and take that step forward. And when you have been in, especially, let's go back to rest, when for so long you've lived in a society that's heavily capitalist, that says you are a piece in a puzzle, you produce things, and that is your sole purpose. Your value is tied to how successful you are, how much you produce, how on all these outwardly facing metrics. Like, that's what we've been told. Like, how you've got to work hard, you've got to. So as soon as we bring in a different, that instantly feels that's uncomfortable. But this isn't to say that that's right or wrong. Like, there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. I can't tell anyone how to live their life. I don't live it. I'm not the expert on anyone else's life. I'd question whether I'm the expert on my own. And actually being able to go, right, what do you want? And this is why the values piece is so important. How do you want to live your life? And it's being able to notice all this external noise from places like capitalism, from places like diet culture, from places like influencers online, or where you're getting this information from. And it's being able to not only turn down some of that noise, but synthesize some of it and bring it together to facilitate the life that you want to live on your terms. And without values, that's really hard to do, without knowing where you want to go. But I think at the same time, we're never going to have that sense of certainty that says this is exactly where I want to get to. So I can't sit here and say, like, you need more rest, because I don't know you. I don't know. I can't possibly say that. And I can't say whether a behavior is good or bad, because it's functional. All behaviors are functional, they serve a purpose. And if avoid and rest, which we could classify as a behavior, serves the purpose of that, means that we don't need to face that really painful thing over there that says our worth is tied to how productive we are, then it's serving a function right now. And you get to then decide, right, do I want to continue my life with that? Is this how I want to live? Is this what I want my life to look like? And there might be seasonal times where it is, and where we need to make sacrifices, and we need to work harder and sprint and try and push. And to deny that is just to deny reality as well. And it's why it's so hard, because there is no hard and fast answers. There's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of grey area, because what works for one person won't work for another. So you need to ultimately find what works for you and how that is going to move you forward, which is why we mentioned values, but also just health and well-being, but beyond physical health and well-being. Like, let's look at all those other areas. That is a facilitator of your values. Because if you have more energy, you have more mental clarity, you've got the ability to concentrate or focus longer, you feel stronger, you feel fitter, you are able to regulate your emotions, you can notice and acknowledge that stress is existing right now, and you can take appropriate behaviors that work for you to soothe that stress. You're able to be cognitively flexible, you can show yourself compassion, all parts of health. So if we can take that model and apply it to any single goal that you want to achieve, it's going to support you. So this idea of health goes so far beyond body composition. And it means that no matter what you're trying to do, it becomes this way to build momentum and move you in the direction that you want to go. So with health as a facilitator of your values, which are the life that you want to live on your terms, then you can start to get a little bit more clarity on where you want to go. And with that in mind, you can then start to identify, well, these are the things that are no longer serving me. And we've all got blind spots. We've all got biases. We all struggle with various patterns that have maybe followed us through our lives, and being able to go, right, okay, that's not good, that's not bad, that's just what is. So right now I'm struggling to rest. That's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Like, that is the reality of this situation. I am struggling to slow down. Okay, what's my resistance to that? My resistance to that is, if I slow down, I won't achieve my goals. Ooh, interesting. Let's explore that. Where did that belief come from for you? Who else held that belief around you? Where did you have that modeled? Because we don't wake up one morning and be like, right, today I'm believing that rest is bad. It's modeled to us. What influenced that for you? There's questions that we can use to explore your experience. And by doing that, you get things that are applicable to you, as opposed to me sitting here and saying, well, actually, the reason why I struggle to rest is because my worth was tied up into productivity. It was into my business. It was into XYZ. And that's a common pattern. It moved from place to place because that's what our behaviors do. We have a behavior that is in this particular domain. And if we aren't careful, the behavior tracks to another domain. And then we go, that's the same behavior, just in a different wrapper. It's got the same underlying energetic need and desire, and that is some sort of validation, or feel safe, or love, or belonging, or whatever those things are for us. But it's doing that deeper work that's going to help you start to not only get clear where you want to go, identify the places where you're currently struggling, or things that are potentially maladaptive for you, that aren't supporting your goals, and also give you the skills, tools that you need to be able to take those next steps.
I cannot wait to do a follow-up on this, if we can do a follow-up, because everything here is probably something that everyone can relate to, because we feel like anything that is outside of our comfort zone or discomfort is a bad thing. It's going to take us away from our goals. It's going to slow things down. How many times have you heard people say, oh, I'll deal with my relationship with food after I lose the weight? I'll deal with muscle gain after I lose the weight. I'll deal with the performance focus after I lose the weight. Everything is, I'll do this after. So then in the meantime, you're continuing your emotional spiral of emotional eating, of binge eating at night because you're actually lonely and you haven't distinguished that the feeling you're feeling isn't actually and like go straight to food. It's like discomfort. Let's calm this down with food, because food somehow is a source of comfort to you. Maybe it was something that was there in your past, or you've just learned it to be a source of comfort, which to me is something that I realized was because I was so go all day. I've not, like, I had this conversation with someone else before, so I'm going to bring this one up as well, where what I realized is at nighttime is when I was finally able to be present with my food. So what I did was I have the food for it. So I'm not eating like a bird during the day. Like, I'm eating half of my calories through the day, but then I'm eating like 1,000 calories at night because I have almost 3,000 calories to play with. So this isn't going to work for everyone in the same degree it has for me. But because I enjoy my night meals that much more, I'm allowing myself to make that meal bigger. But there are so many people that have like certain behaviors that are deemed to be bad, where, like Stu said, nothing is good or bad unless you make it so, because the behavior itself doesn't have a moral value unless it's misaligned with your goals, with your actions, which, how do you know it actually is? Or is it just the current frame that you're putting on it because you haven't worked out a way for it to serve you? For example, a lot of people think that snacking on certain foods is bad. Well, it's like, well, the way that you're doing it, it's not serving your goals. So of course it's leading you into the spiral. How can you make it serve you instead? And the shame that we put upon ourselves for having these quirks, if that's what you want to call it, just aggravates the issue. If we can remove the shame that we have on ourselves for our certain eating habits, for struggling with behavior change. I had this conversation to someone else before. Like, I feel like one of my superpowers as a coach is the fact that I'm a client. So I understand it. And I have the same struggles most weeks, not related to food or nutrition, but other struggles with behavior change as well. Exactly. We're human. Change is hard when we're trying to change any behavior. And every human, like you said, the process is where things evolve. We're always going to be in the process of wanting to change something to be better. So we're always going to be in some form of discomfort, of some form of struggle, unless you choose to ignore it, or unless you choose to soothe it with something else and say that it's not worth the time, and then you just end up regretting it later on. But if you're listening to this, you're someone who actually wants to improve yourself and not someone who wants to leave things for later. And the first thing is normalizing that it's normal and it's not something to be shameful for, but it's exploring it. It's building awareness around it. Where is it coming from? Is this actually a bad thing, or is it just the way that you're currently approaching it? Can you shift and reframe your approach on it? To me, instead of feeling like it was such a bad thing and then feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere, feeling like my body was a puffy bag of shit, I realized, no, it's not my body that's the issue. It's not these other things that's the issue. It's that I don't feel like I'm acting the way I should be acting, quote unquote, because I'm doing this rebellious thing, or I'm doing this wrong thing that is taking me away from my goals. I'm doing pretty much the same thing now to a different extent, but without that shame, it's actually serving me. It's fitting within my goals, because as soon as I removed the shame, all of a sudden I have glasses on. I can see clearly now. The rain has gone. But you can see once you allow yourself to, and you won't ever see if you continue to berate yourself and shame yourself for it and then not want to explore it because, oh my God, I'm such a bad human for having human emotions. Wow. You're not a robot. But that was the shame thing that I wanted to talk about. And then I won't get to my goals. That's a huge thing that people feel. And I wanted you to go deeper on that one as well. But the other one was, I wanted to read on here as well. But the Protestant Revolution was something because this phone is my work phone. It doesn't get internet. So it's the only reason I remember it so much, because I was so pissed off that I couldn't understand what this thing meant because I couldn't look it up on Wikipedia. So it's like I had to keep repeating it in my head. And then I'm like, okay, Protestant Revolution. I looked it up. And it was where everyone started working more to give value to society. And then this is where it came from, where the harder we work, the more that we give to society, the better we are as humans, because, oh, we're so holy. But what this says about it is that really, which one is it? It's this one. Was it really that you were doing a whole shitload of labor? Or was it just the fact that you were doing more productive work? It's quality, not quantity. But the distance we travel is due less to how much labor we do than the fruit it bears. So you can be working really hard, but is it going to bear enough fruit? Because one person could be working the exact same amount as you, but they get a lot more fruit out of it. One person could be working half as much as you and getting just a little less fruit. But why would you want to be working as hard as you are, not getting any results, or working just as hard as you are, getting the same results, when you could work literally 1% less, work 20% less and only get 1 to 5% less fruit? Because to me, that's more reward per bang of work. It's like, is that extra 5% worth it? I would say no, if you get way more than that of your time back. And the reason I use that as an example is because I think this ties into values. What is it you truly value? Because I'm pretty sure that, yeah, you could do that and get like a little bit more work out of it. I mean, a little bit more fruit out of it for a shit ton more work. But that usually comes at a consequence of so much more in relation to what you're giving. And one of my clients actually she voiced me saying, I realize now that I wanted these results that weren't realistic. And I need to make sure that my goals are actually realistic with what I can do. And I know now that I don't want to be as strict as you on XYZ or give as much time to training as you on this, that, and the other. So my expectations need to be in line with that. So she can't want my results if she doesn't want to do XYZ. And it's like, this is where a lot of people miss out, because you can have amazing results. It's just the time required and and how far, whatever you get out of it in terms of fruit, always feels like it's the best fruit that you can get when you realize that it's in line with your values and what you did to get that fruit was in line with your quote unquote guide rails. It was without the cognitive dissonance. So that was one thing I want to touch on there, because I want to go into the values. The other one was where you mentioned deciphering the opinions and such. I don't remember how you said it, but the way that he said this is, the more information you open yourself up to, the more important that filtering comes on knowing what's right, what's wrong, what to trust. You need to be able to cross-examine your thoughts a lot more. And if you only ever listen to that echo in your head without getting the outside help to see things in a different way, or without slowing down to do self-exploration, self-development. I thought that I know as a fact that I developed the most when I was between 22 to 26. They were like my golden years. All I did was self-development through reading podcasts. There was less distraction online. So I just kept a uni for I feel like people these days are going to struggle more than we did back then from when we got into health and fitness. Because when we got into it then, there was so much less distraction, so much less information to confuse us, so much less taking us away from our goal. So I was able to do so much self-development then without being spread too thin. Now, this last year, I picked up a book for the first time ever. And over 12 months in that self-development, tied in with I never actually stopped listening to podcasts. All of that together has made me more self-aware. You need to take time to do this. It's not, I'll put that on hold there because it's not tangible and I just want to lose this weight. As soon as I get rid of the weight, blah, blah, blah. That tends to be people's things that holds them back. And then they end up staying stuck in the same cycle. And the last thing I wanted to mention was my favorite part here, perfectionists, because I know that this is something that we kind of will touch on as you go on your last rant. But perfectionists need to actually tolerate flaws, because the true meaning of being a master at what you do is making mistakes, seeking feedback, seeking advice that's constructive, like coaching, not just criticism and not just cheerleading, but actual constructive criticism, because those flaws are what make us better. And it's part of becoming an expert and continuing to gain mastery. The more you grow, as in the more mistakes you make, the more you learn, the more you grow, the better you know. and flaws need to be an acceptable part of that process. Take it away.
I think there's on the perfectionism piece, like, again, it serves a function. It's a protective mechanism for us. It gets us to, as Brené would say, we avoid the uncomfortable feelings of criticism, judgment, pain, shame. Oh, that's the aim of it. Like, that's what it's trying to do. Whether it succeeds at that is different. But there's an intention that sits underneath that. And like, it's easy to sit here and talk about, but the actual doing of that is way harder. The actual changing of the way we think, the way we approach, the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, the way that they show up in our lives. And again, like, we talk about perfectionism, and across the board within the health and fitness space, say perfectionism is bad. Is it? And actually, when you look at the research, not all perfectionism is bad, and not all perfectionism is maladaptive. There's healthy perfectionists. The difference between healthy perfectionists and ones that would be labeled unhealthy, or those that struggle, is the way that they handle the repercussions of when things don't go to plan. So the striving aspect of perfectionism doesn't really have a huge impact on people's well-being and can actually aid people's well-being. It's what happens when we don't achieve our goals. It's when we hold those standards so high and don't achieve them. Does that turn into self-criticism? Does that turn into beratement? Is there a lot of shame that comes with that? If there is, then we can work on that. It doesn't mean you need to renounce your standards, although reducing them for a period of time will definitely help. But it's understanding that these things that we're so quick to box up and say, like, perfectionism is bad, it's actually not. Like, there's much more nuance to it. And when we start talking to, like, you look at anyone within and this is out of our scope of practice by a country mile, but you look at people who are in clinical levels of perfectionism, like, the work that's required there is huge. It's broad scope. It's a huge scope of work. There's so much under the surface going on. And that isn't to say that everyone's a clinical level perfectionist, because they aren't. But at the same time, that can be debilitating. And it's this slow process that we're probably not going to get to the end of. Like, I have so many fucking blind spots that I'll sit down with my coach, my therapeutic coach, and he'll ask me a question. I'm like, why didn't I see that? Because we're so in it. Like, we're in our own lives. We're bombarded by the emotional intensity of what's going on for us. So, of course, we can't be objective. Sure, and something like journaling can help, like writing down our thoughts, our feelings, what's going on for us, and then reviewing them. But having that objectivity from someone else can be really, really useful. Of course it can, but that's not always accessible to people. It costs money, and that's tough. So it's about finding what you're able to do right now, and that's probably not going to look like the absolute optimal. And that's okay, because you've put your foot in the arena and you're trying. You're trying to make a change. Like, anyone who's listening to this right now, you're listening to it. That's more than some people are. That's a step in the right direction for you. You've put your foot in the arena, and that's arguably the hardest part. So just give yourself the acknowledgement for that, of like, wow, yeah, I've sat and listened to these two talk about this for the past 28 minutes. Well done. Like, fantastic. You're here, you're listening. That's a step in the right direction. Don't discredit that. Embrace it, acknowledge it, and be like, right, what's the next bit for me? Maybe that is building some self-awareness, but know that that's never good. You're never going to get to a place where you're self-aware. Like, it's a continual spectrum of change, just like anything else. And how much of that comes just from maturity? Can't answer, because I can't split test life. I don't know how my level of awareness would have changed if I hadn't done self-development. I can't guarantee it would be any different, because, like I say, we can't split test. But I'd rather try and take the action to do that and go through these processes and try different modalities and ideas and get the benefits that come along with that, than to be running on autopilot through my life, to feel as though that I'm just getting pulled from place to place to place, instead of feeling as though I'm the one that's taking the steps. And depending on whether you believe in determinism or not, that's a completely different kettle of fish. But at the same time, I'd rather feel that I have some semblance of influence on the outcomes.
And it's hard to do that if you don't really know your values, though. So then I really wanted to have values as the last part of this that you talk about before you jet as well, because I feel like none of this matters if you don't know what makes you feel good. Like, what is it that you actually want out of what you're doing? Like, of course, you want to look better and feel better. Like, that's why we're doing this for. But How is that going to make your life different? What will change in your life? How will you show up differently? What needs to change right now for you to get to where you want to be? And again, what is stopping you? Because it's not a matter of what you need to do. It's a matter of getting clear on what's actually stopping you and redirecting it from there. So I'm just going to leave the floor open to you to talk about where values fits in and how this all ties together with slowing down and how that gets you to your goals faster.
The values piece is way more complicated than everyone makes out, because no one talks about the fact that we can have values that aren't our own. We can be given them from other people, and we don't realize they aren't our own, which is why that self-awareness is the really important piece. Now, this isn't to say don't sit down and try and work out your values, but understand your values will change over time. They'll grow and adapt. They'll come along for the ride with you. And by sitting down and going, right, and again, right, people just look at a list and pick words off. That's not your values. You've been living your values out up until this point. So it's looking for patterns. You've been engaging in them subconsciously, unconsciously. You've been doing this. So one of the key sort of processes of this is identifying what are your like top 3 magic moments in your life. What are the achievements that you're most proud of? What are even look around the room to you right now. What are the objects that are around you? What are things that matter to you? What are memories that have like that real strong weight that you just instantly, they make you smile? What are your dreams and desires? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? One of my personal values is adventure, which is why I'm traveling around Southeast Asia. I've lived that out. I've traveled. I've lived in different countries. I've moved. Now, for me, one of my values is adventure. There's a sense of freedom in there as well. They can cross over. There's curiosity, just pure curiosity of how can I learn as much as possible about the world, about different cultures, about new people. How can I read different things? And it's one of my values. So when I tune into that and I feel a little bit incongruent, or I'm like, okay, am I still living in alignment with that as much as I can? And again, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to do it perfectly. We're never going to tick all the boxes, and understand that the majority of the time you're probably going to be out of alignment. But the aim is to recommit back to that. Okay, so right now I'm not living in alignment with what's most meaningful to me. How can I change that? What can I do about it? It's that continual process of recommitment and then taking that step and working towards it and probably fucking it up and then going, all right, okay, let's try again. Doing it, fucking it up, and then doing it again and just repeating that process. And over time, you'll slowly hone and refine and calibrate yourself down towards those values, the things that are most meaningful to you, the things that you want more of. But again, for some people, values is such an amorphous term, like it's so vague. And depending on, for example, I struggled with values for a really long time because the first thing that came to my head are these right? There's a pressure to get them right. So we talk about values, but actually for some people, values aren't all that helpful. So there's another side, there's another dimension to everything that we talk about. Like, yeah, values are really important. And if you look at stuff like acceptance and commitment therapy, if you look at many different modalities, they say, like, what are your values? And they help you find them and communicate them. But at the same way, it's like goals. Goals don't resonate with everyone. Some people really struggle with goals. And it's not because they're bad people, it's because they don't resonate. Maybe they will in time, but maybe there's some steps to do first. And this is this whole idea of meeting people where they are. Like, where are you right now? Well, the idea of values completely overwhelms me. Cool, let's not bother. Let's not look at those. Let's do something else. Let's try a different approach. Let's identify some strengths and qualities that you know you've currently got that we can use in different ways. You're super resilient. Okay, amazing. How can you use that resilience in a new way this week? How can you use that resilience in a new way this month? You're courageous, you've took action repeatedly. Awesome. How can you use that differently? There is no one size fits all. And for some people, values will be amazing and they'll really be able to connect to them. For some people, they need ideals, something that their ideal self can lean into. Like, this is the person that I want to become. This is the person I want to be. And try not to compare that version, that aspirational identity to your current identity. It's not possible to completely ignore it because we compare ourselves all the time. But having the type of person that you want to be, I want to be the type of person who's courageous. Okay, so how can we start taking action towards that? What does that look like? What does courage look like to you? Or, well, actually, it's being able to go onto the beach and take my clothes off and not worry what other people think of me. All right, okay, so there's an element of worrying about criticisms from others. Can we work on that? Can we build the skill of compassion to support you to be able to soothe yourself when those thoughts that you are being judged by others inevitably arise? Yeah, welcome to courage. You've just achieved it. Is that a quick process? By no means. But it's when we look at something like values, it's like, oh, that doesn't align anymore. That's not the same strategy we would use for values. So there's another side to that. And I just think it's worthwhile mentioning that for people who are like, values doesn't really sing to me. Okay, so who do you want to be? Who do you want to be this year? How does that person act? How does that person feel? What's the theme of 2025 for you? What's the intention? What do you want more of? I want more love. I want more peace. I want more connection. I want more belonging. I want more freedom. I want more truth. I want more depth. What do you want more of? Because that can be a guiding light for some people. And once you've built some momentum, once you've made a couple of steps and you start going, and some of that pressure, some of the expectation, you start to feel more energized, that's when you may be ready to do the next step. I've worked with clients for a year and we haven't looked at values until a year in. And that would be the exact opposite of what any other coach would say. That person wasn't ready or comfortable to look at values, and to do that was so uncomfortable, we just didn't do it. She made phenomenal progress, didn't know her values, which goes against everything. But if you're not willing to meet people where they are, then so being able to take that step back and go, actually, what does this person need right now? And that's the same to yourself. What do you need right now? What do you need? I need to build that sense of trust in myself. Okay, awesome. Let's work on that. It gives us a sense of direction, and we don't need to know the final destination. We don't need to know where we're trying to get to. We just need to start moving. And I'll share one final analogy, and this will be me done. And one of my clients shared it with me and was like, if you're in a sailboat, unless you're moving, the rudder does nothing. There's no point turning the rudder when your sail isn't up, because you don't change direction. You need to be taking action. You can't steer an unparked car is another example of that. Like, you need to be moving in a direction to be able to course correct. So just start going, and you'll be able to work it out along the way.
I like the fact that you said course correct, because I'm going to be quick because I know you need to leave, because you said that sometimes values doesn't resonate with you, and that's because sometimes we think it needs to look a certain way, like you mentioned, or you also mentioned being judged by others, and everyone's going to be scared of being judged by others because you're inherently, whether you're aware of it or whether you want to accept it or not, you're going to be judging some person out there. Like, regardless of whether you want to or not, there is some judgment. It can be either positive or negative. Like, it is stupid, actually naive, I'll use that word. It is naive to think that you're not going to be judged by someone. There are 15 billion people in this world. Someone out there isn't going to agree with someone times a billion of something or other is not going to agree with the way that you live your life, the way that you do things. So of course you're going to be judged by someone. But like you said before, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to respond to that? Because that's going to determine everything. And we always react versus respond until we do the pausing and build a toolbox just to build awareness within ourselves. Because sometimes it's not even so much as taking a different action as it is to just being aware, because then we can have more realistic expectations and know our trade-offs, et cetera, et cetera. And the last part is you need to be open to evolve and use other things, like I mentioned, but we're also emotional creatures. So maybe the typical values isn't there, but you said, what do you want more of? How about what do you want less of? What currently in your life is draining you? What are your energizers? What are your drainers? What do you feel you are missing at the moment? You may not know what you want more of until you get clear on what it is that is making you feel like shit, because you have the power to change. There is no such thing as being stuck. You choose to stay there, regardless of whether you want to be there or not. You're choosing to stay there because anything else is too uncomfortable for you to face. So what's the resistance? Funny, full circle. But honestly, what's the resistance? Because you're in charge. You're in charge, and you need to learn to trust yourself, and you can't trust yourself until you start to stack proof. And you can't stack proof if you're not meeting yourself where you're at and being realistic, and stop trying to manage it all now and saying, I will deal with that after I do X, because then you'll always fail your word and have zero proof except failure. And it's not failure you'll learn from, because you haven't learned how to learn. You haven't learned how to grow. You haven't learned how to see failure as feedback, as positive fertilizer for you to move forward. That's the end of me. Do you want to close off with anything at all? I really liked this little short clip, but I feel like it was actually really powerful. What do you think?
I agree. Also, just want to lean into, as a final, there's so much pressure right now to do so much, to be doing everything, to be managing our lives, to be doing this work, to be at work, to be showing up, to there's so much pressure. Like, we live in chronic states of stress, of go, of being, our nervous system's charged to the absolute nines. Overwhelm, anxiety, nervousness. Unless you do the slowing down piece that we've talked about, that's just going to continue. So we don't have a choice over everything. We can't control everything. We can't even influence everything. There's so much that's out of our control. But if you do anything today, just take 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Create the smallest possible step towards what we've talked about. And that is literally 3 deep breaths while you make your coffee. 3 deep breaths before you eat your next meal. Like, what's the smallest possible step you can take? And just do that. And it'll feel really small and really shit. And you'll be like, this isn't working. But it's the boring, simple stuff like that that produces unbelievable results when you do it more often. Doesn't need to be every day. Just do it when you can. Right now, how are you breathing? Short, sharp, deep, slow? Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? And it's bringing awareness to your breath. And now do that every time you think of it. Oh, what's my breath doing? Just checking.
Yeah. Remember, everything is a skill. Allow yourself to improve. Give yourself a real chance. And what's your pleasure project, passion project, pleasure project podcast called? So I put it down below for everyone to follow. And I'll also put Stu's Instagram down below as well.
The Pleasure Project podcast, that is literally it.
I will put that down below, and you can tell people your Instagram as well, just so people hear it and they can go look it up too, but I'll put it down below.
Stu.graham.s25, and then the Seeking Insights podcast is my other podcast, which is just me with guests chatting about all things complete health, well-being, kind of very much this jam. The Pleasure Project is solely directed towards pleasure, but it is heavily with self-development. With Katie goes into so much neuroscience, like she is phenomenal in that realm. I've learned so much just by being a co-host, and we have had our first guest and we plan to have many more. So
I really feel like you guys will benefit from the Pleasure Project, but if you're a client, you would probably know the link that I put into everybody's end of year forms. But one thing I do want to say, just as a quick note on his podcast, his actual podcast, is pick any little tiny thing, the tiniest littlest thing that can be a win, because so many of us do not celebrate the wins, and we need to celebrate the wins as small as they can be in order to encourage us to keep going. Because if we are only going to be hard on ourselves, I sent everyone that 50 wins thing, but as long as we're going to be hard on ourselves, we're never going to feel like we're winning. We're always going to feel like we're struggling. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if this resonated with you in any ways, if it sparked any feathers, don't come and tell us. Sit with yourself first. Write it all down, because you're going to forget. You can tell us and still forget. Write it all down. Expand on it. Think of it as another bud that you've just added to your garden. You need to keep feeding it and allow it to flourish. Let the bud open, and then come to us and see how, and let us know how it's had some sort of positive impact in your life once you've actually allowed it to open up. Love you all, and I'll see you on the other podcast. Bye.